The Federal Open Market Committee of the Federal Reserve System meets again next week, and the financial markets have been upset for several days out of fear over what mischief the Fed may do. It is time to insist that the Federal Open Market Committee members take their own Hippocratic oath to, at first, do no harm. I'll explain. Be sure to stay with me on this topic.
The current turmoil started last Friday with the announcement that non-farm payrolls jumped 172,000 in May. This is good news, and in addition to that, previous months were revised upward about 93,000 in the 2 previous months. But the markets were spooked because of fear that the Federal Reserve may raise interest rates at its next meeting next week. Speculation about possible Federal Reserve activities generates volatility and uncertainty in the markets. This turmoil is not conducive to the productive functioning of our economy. It's interesting to note that previous data released and apparently reviewed by the Fed was revised. Why should the Fed be meeting every 7 weeks if it's going to take 2 or 3 months before the data are finally determined? In my opinion, I think consideration should be given to the idea of quarterly meetings, with, of course, the provision that emergency meetings could be held if necessary. Meetings scheduled every 7 weeks generates a constant source of turmoil in the markets, wondering what will the Fed do next. Also, in my opinion, they talk too much. It seems like a week doesn't go by without one of them being on the camera somewhere, mouthing off about their current view of what interest rate policy should be. This just adds to the confusion and uncertainty and turmoil in the markets. Let's look at the recent history of FOMC action. There have been no changes in the federal funds rate this year so far in 2026, but in the last 4 months of 2025, they made a change every time. The current target rate is 3.5 to 3.75. My previous report on May 3rd presented the forecast for boom and inflation ahead, and that's what we got with the recent CPI results. Let's look at the recent CPI. The Consumer Price Index was up 4.2% in the month of May after rising 3.8% in the month of April. One of the primary causes of inflation now is the spike in oil prices, which have resulted from the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the shipments of petroleum. No amount of interest rate changes will alter the problem with the Strait of Hormuz. In future programs, I'll be discussing housing, interest rates, and the overall economy.
Well, that concludes my program today. Thanks for tuning in and subscribing. We'll see you next time.